it's Izzy here today, and we are going to be doing my August wrap-up. I'm going to be showing you all of the books that I've read in the month of August, my thoughts on them. We have some 5 stars, we have a 1 star. We had a lot of different opinions on books this month, so let's see what all of those were. Let's get into it. The first book that I have to talk about is the book that I finished most recently, and that is A Botanist's Guide to Parties and Poisons by Kate Kavari. This was the 1 star of the month, and here's why. The character, our main character, Saffron Everly, was so irritating, and she didn't have to be that way. This is set in 1923 in England. It is for like the STEM girlies. We have Saffron, who is a biologist, or she is at school to become a biologist, and obviously she is one of the lone women there, and she has to constantly prove herself to men, which totally makes sense because she's a woman in a male-dominated field and 100 years ago. But the way the author went about it just made her so insufferable. You can add so much depth to that, because I mean that sounds like a great premise of being one of the only women at this university learning biology. You can make a great story of that, but the author just did not develop that enough. And that is one of the main things with this book, not developed enough. The relationship, there is a romance in this book, but honestly I feel like Saffron did not care about Alexander's feelings at all. He is a World War I veteran and obviously has some PTSD from that. And obviously back then that wasn't as well known. It was something that people were still coming to terms with and researching. But I think there needed to be just some empathy there. I felt like there was none from her part. And then the villain, it was obvious who the killer was going to be from page 1. Yeah, not good character work. But I picked this book up because of the atmosphere of 1923 in London. I'm really intrigued about those years between the world wars in England. I don't think there's a lot of media, so when I saw something taking place there, I instantly had to grab it. This could take place in any historical setting. It didn't really have an emphasis on it being in 1923, other than those references to some characters being veterans from the First World War. But no, this mainly gave me Victorian vibes. But if you do like dark academia, then pick this up, because the dark academia and gothic vibes are so strong. So if you are into that, definitely give this a go. This was rather slow paced. It is a short book, but it was slow, and maybe that's just because I didn't like the characters and the atmosphere wasn't what I had signed up for, or the writing was just rather slow for me and I didn't really like it. Did find myself skimming, and then the plot was so chaotic. Things were just happening left and right, and my mind was constantly wandering. I did not like this book. I gave it a 1 star. It had a 5-star read in August, and this has been the best nonfiction book that I've read this year, and that is The Library Book by Susan Orlean. I did the ebook and followed along in tandem with the audiobook, and oh my gosh, this was so good, so informative. This is mainly from what you would read in the synopsis. There was a fire at the Los Angeles Public Library at Central Library in April of 1986. And to this day, they still don't know what caused the fire. They don't know if it was mechanical, electrical, or arson. This was going all through the true crime elements of breaking down the fire, breaking down the trials that came after, the investigation. But this book is so much more than just being a true crime book about that. I would even say it was memoir at some point. The main theme here is memories and stories and how they live on, and a library is a place where so many stories and memories are alive. With the author, she frequently talks about her mother, who sadly had Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm not 100% sure what it was. Her mother's memory was going, and when the author was writing this book, and Susan Orlean was just thinking about all those library trips she went on with her mother and bringing them up to her mother, who didn't really remember them. And oh my god, that's so sad to think about. We have those memoir elements, and then we have the historical elements of the history of libraries, but mainly the Los Angeles library system going back to the 1870s. Back then it was a very male-dominated field. Women couldn't even have library cards, children couldn't go to the library. And then my favorite part was, what is a library? Why is a library important to our society? The people who work at a library, all the resources for the community, and how overall the library is the heart of the community. I loved those bits of seeing the modern day library workers, but I loved the history as well. I loved everything about this book. As I said, it's a 5-star. It might be overwritten for some people. At first it was for me, but once I just got hooked onto the story, I didn't care about that anymore. Also, I think this would be a great book if you are wanting to start nonfiction, because as I said, it really mixes memoir, history, true crime, really mixing all those themes together, and you get The Library Book by Susan Orlean. We have a historical fiction, and that is The Woman Before Wallis by Bryn Turnbull. This is one of those forgettable books. I read it in a weekend. This is about the woman who was with the Duke of Windsor before he was with Wallis, and at this time he was the Prince of Wales. For characters, I didn't really care for our main character of Thelma, but I was really drawn to some of the side characters. So that's like kind of, I wish there was a book, there might be, on the Vanderbilt custody battle between Thelma's sister and the Vanderbilt family, and the child who is at the center of it is Anderson Cooper's mother. That was really interesting, and what kept me going is I wanted to know what was would happen there, and then I was curious of how Thelma and David's relationship would fall apart. He did end up marrying Wallis Simpson. I was intrigued. The atmosphere was really cozy. It was, so if you want like a cozy historical, this is taking place out of States, the English countryside. I got very cozy vibes from that. And again, I picked this up because it's between the First World War and Second World War, and this one did a lot better than the mystery one. The writing, there were some really beautiful sentences in here, but overall it was pretty much just fine writing. No complaints there. And then, as I said, with the plot, I was really drawn to that custody battle plot rather than the love story that this book is trying to showcase. This is a book that I am not giving a rating to, as it is a preference book, but that is the Illustrated Crystallary by Maya Toll. This is showing 36 different kinds of crystals and what people have used them for, and I thought this was just really interesting. And if you want to get somebody like Christmas gifts or something, I think this would be a great place to, because I bought some Christmas gifts for some people because I was reading this and being like, oh, this would be perfect for so and so. And those gifts came in the mail today, so that's super exciting. I learned a lot from this, and the illustrations in here are so beautiful. If you're interested in crystals and wanting to learn about them, I would definitely recommend picking this book up. Now we have a Stranger Things graphic novel, and that is 6, and it is by Jody Hauser and a lot of other people. This one, the characters I was intrigued by, but again, it felt like it was lacking. It felt like there could be so much more to their story, because I do not know, why do all these people have these powers that they have? In Stranger Things for 11, I feel like we get that backstory, and in the book, what is the one that it has Brenner on the cover? I'm not remembering that name, but we do get backstory on like the experiment that 11's mom was part of. But all these other random people, how did they have their powers? Why did they have their powers? I want to know more about that, and honestly I doubt we're going to find that out in Stranger Things, and in this book we did not find that out. Atmosphere, this did really expand on life at the lab, and it really showed it like we haven't seen it before, so I did like those parts. But again, it felt very chaotic. I did like, we were seeing parallels between like past and present. I do like how they did that. But I felt like this could have been a lot more. There could have been a lot more to the story. This might have even been better as a regular novel versus a graphic novel. One Brilliant Flame by Joy Castro. This is a historical fiction taking place in Key West during the Spanish-American War. The characters, all the female characters felt kind of interchangeable, but they're really caricatures. I can never say that right. We have like the rich girl who wants to rebel. We have the girl who dresses like a boy and, you know, that kind of thing. And then the one who has the secret hidden talent. And all the male characters were just, they would randomly come in, and I think their POVs, we didn't need them. They weren't necessary for this. Atmosphere, I did learn a ton, and you can definitely tell that Joy Castro did her research with this book. As for writing, it was a bit choppy. The chapters are very short. This is very fast-paced, very easy to read, but it was like... It just did not flow nicely. And we're on an island. You need to have a nice island flow, you know? But plot, I did learn a lot. There was that intrigue there because I know nothing about the Spanish-American War other than like that's how America got Puerto Rico. And it was showing, like, I never thought about American and Cuban relations going back to the 1800s. You only think of like the present day and, you know, the last 50 years for that. You never think like that far back. I never really think of Cuba in the 1800s. I know, ignorant, but I did learn a lot, and that is why I stuck with this book rather than like DNFing it, is because I really was intrigued to find out that bit of history. And who knew that Key West was once the largest city by population in Florida? I would have never guessed that. Another nonfiction that I did the audiobook for, and that is Showtime, Magic, Kareem, Riley, and the Los Angeles Lakers Dynasty of the 1980s by Jeff Pearlman. I love this book. This was one of the best nonfiction books that I had read this year, but yeah, the library book took the cake. But I think these were really fun to read so close together because they're both taking place in the 1980s in Los Angeles. I really love diving into all of these people that build a team, not just the players, but you see all the behind the scenes as well, and just seeing how the world of sports works and how sports really brings people together. And I think that's so important. It's so awesome to see just people coming together and pulling for one thing. I love it. I love that. It just really showed all these characters. These people were such characters, and yes, I love this. And if you've seen the show Winning Time, definitely pick up the book because it expands on so much more. Now we have a 5-star prediction that didn't quite make it to a 5-star. It was in the 4-star range, and that is Northwoods by Daniel Mason. These characters, I never really had enough time to connect with the characters. Everything really was great except the characters. I just never felt that connection. The atmosphere was fantastic. This would be great to pick up in the fall. Fall is starting next week, or the end of this week technically, and my standings for it. Definitely pick this book up in the fall if you want that like cozy New England apple orchard vibe. That was a lot of fun. And the writing, oh my gosh, the writing was so beautiful. As I was saying, atmosphere. The writing is so atmospheric. The nature writing is the highlight of this novel. If you are somebody who loves nature, love being outside, then you'll really like this. And I do think the Overstory, if you like the Overstory by Richard Powers, you would like this one. There's so many books that I was comparing this to, but the Overstory I think is the biggest because of how everything in life is connected. I think that's the big theme here, is that everything is connected, everybody is connected. History impacts everybody's lives because all of that led up to this, and all of what we're living right now will lead to the future. Fantastic writing. And then the plot, I think this was a great themes and idea book, but some of the times, especially as we got closer to the modern times, I was caring less and less about what was happening. I loved more of the earlier time periods, the more historical time periods. But this is still a great book, and I would highly recommend it, especially if you're somebody who likes atmosphere, nature, and themes and idea books rather than a character or plot-driven book. In the Time of Our History by Susan Pari. This is another historical book, but more modern historical, as it takes place in the 1990s. Modern historical, it's not even a term, I don't know. I loved following all of these families. These are developed characters, or it's all one family, but all the members of this family. And they are all developed. You understand why they make the choices that they do, why they are the way that they are. That is just so great when an author can do that, because these characters, I'm going to tell you, they're not likable. None of them are likable, but that doesn't matter. You're still going to be intrigued by their story. It makes sense why they are the people that they are. I think this atmosphere is really important as well, showing what life was like for an Iranian family in America pre 9/11 and right at the cusp of 9/11. Because I've read a lot of Iranian literature recently, or mainly people who were immigrants from Iran. This one really shows what the modern immigrant life is like, and the writing, it was overwritten at times. I do think this book went on a little too long, but the plot I think is just very important. Again, I think this was mainly a character-driven book. Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. This is a poetry collection that I read this month, and it made me realize I don't think I'm an emotion poetry person. I don't really want to read about people's emotions. I like narrative poetry. I like poetry that tells a story. But if you want to hear all about what love can do, falling in love, falling out of love, just love in general, then you will like this. And if you want to know about all the emotions that come with love, you will like this. Last book now is The Forest of Vanishing Stars by Christian Harmel. This is a historical fiction taking place during World War II. I have always been drawn to this cover, but I didn't really love this book. The characters, they were all just one-dimensional, and our main character, definitely a Mary Sue. She is your, like, she knows how to do everything. She grew up in the wilderness, but she knows all this advanced science like chemistry and everything. She knows how to survive in the wild. She is kind of awkward with social interaction, but it's like kind of done in a cutesy way. And I'm like, no, nobody is like this. But the character I really liked was like our witchy one, was the woman who raised our main character, but we did not get enough of her. I would have loved that, but even the character relationships felt very forced. The romance was so unnecessary. I hated the romance in this book so bad. But atmosphere, again, I think this would be a good fall or winter read, as we are mainly taking place in the forest. It gave very much fairy tale vibes, and I did really like that. I did like the atmosphere of this book. The writing, I honestly don't remember that much of the writing. I did take pictures of some pages, so there was some atmospheric and nature writing. As I said, the majority of the book has taken place in the forest, so I did like those elements. And then the plot, very fascinating, very intriguing, but with the character work not being there, I am mainly a character-driven person. If that isn't great, I'm not really going to care about anything else, but this plot gave me ideas to go research other stuff and maybe pick up some nonfiction about this same event. That is the August wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. If you made it through this whole video, leave a fruit emoji in the comments below. Bye! If you are familiar with my videos, you're used to seeing Sherman at the end of them. Sadly, Sherman has since passed away, but I would still like to encourage you guys to help your local shelters. Sherman was at the Darlington County Humane Society in rural South Carolina. I always have their link down below in the description if you guys would like to help them, but also help your local shelters as well. You can do that by donating, sharing posts like this one, volunteering, fostering, and adopting, which it's great to do all of those things. Great to help your community, great to help the animals in your community, and I cannot recommend it enough. All of my pets were rescues, they were strays or from animal shelters, and I love them so much, and I know how much love they can give, so knowing these pets at the shelter can equally give that much love, it's amazing. And y'all should totally take part and help out those local animal shelter pets, and please help them.